Welcome to the Mile High Fi podcast. My name is Carl Jensen, and I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Doug Cunnington.
And today we have two awesome guests. This is the first time we're doing a four-person interview, so this is pretty exciting, or a four-person podcast. We have local Longmontians. Is that how you say a Longmont? I think so. I'm going with it. We have Robert and Carla. Hello, Robert and Carla. How are you today?
Hey, guys. Doing great.
We are excellent.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about how I know Carla and Robert. I had to check my email before our recording way back in September of 2019. That feels so long ago with COVID. I received an email from Carla, and she mentioned that her and Robert were thinking about moving to Longmont and wanted our advice or wanted to talk to us a little bit about it. And I'm always kind of scared when people ask me about that because obviously I'm biased in multiple ways. I do like Longmont, but the other thing is I want interesting, fun people to hang out with. So, of course, I'm like, yeah, you should totally move here. Let's do it. Carla and Robert, Longmont is for you. And I hadn't even met them yet. I don't know if I was that enthusiastic. So my question, what I would like to open up with to you two, and maybe Carla, you go first, is, has Longmont met your expectations? And you could tell the truth because, yeah, I'm always scared about this. I got to pump Longmont up and then people move here and they're like, what the hell? This place sucks. So what are your opinions of Longmont? Are you happy here so far?
I would say it has more than lived up to our expectations. So we were coming from Dallas, Texas, and like it's so hot and it's so flat. Like unless you're into shopping and strip clubs, I think is the other thing that Dallas is really known for.
Lots of good strip clubs.
Wait, not a strip mall, a strip club where people take their clothes off. Okay,
Yeah.
To clarify.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been to a strip club in Dallas, but like it's a thing. Like people talk about like the shopping and the strip clubs in Dallas are right on. So we were not super into either of those things. So yeah, we had been thinking for a long time about moving somewhere that had more mountains and a better climate and a little bit more of a culture that we were in line with and a lot of different things. And yeah, Longmont has checked every single one of the boxes that we were hoping for.
Cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, we came in beginning of 2020 and met a bunch of people. It was great and fantastic. And then everything closed down for COVID. And we were a little leery in the beginning, but my goodness, things have just kind of picked up in the last few weeks again. And it just feels like everything we ever wanted. So it's been perfect.
I feel like you'll finally get to experience Longmont. We do not have the strip clubs of Dallas. I don't think we have one here. If there is, I don't know about it. But yeah, you'll finally get to experience Longmont and all the cool things that happen in summer. Like now, I'm sorry you had to go through the COVID stuff, but it passed peacefully. How about you, Doug? When did you meet Carla and Robert?
Only a few weeks after that, I think. So it was at a Mr. Money Mustache HQ event. And I think I only talked to you, Carla, maybe for like 3 or 4 minutes. Maybe that was the day you put an offer on a house. Is that right?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, it was that beer making thing in early December. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then we never called each other. I knew you guys were in town by that time and never got in touch. You also didn't get in touch with me. And then sometime later, we met at another event just before everything shut down, like weeks before. Now, thinking of like that many people in a small place makes me a little nervous. I mean, I was a little nervous then, but now even more so. And at that point, my wife was there. We all chatted for a little while, and then we've hung out a bunch since then. But that's cool. So Carl convinced you that it was so awesome, and then you guys made the huge decision. Now, we haven't talked about who you are and what you do. So can you give a little intro? Each of you, Robbie, why don't you start?
Sure. Yeah, I'm an energy engineer. I have been doing that ever since college. I love it. I get to go help buildings be more efficient, use less energy. And, the job's really rewarding for our end customers and for everybody else too. So I really like it. It's all fun.
Awesome.
I am a lawyer. I have not had quite the same level of love and enthusiasm for my work over the course of my career. I graduated from law school in 2008, and my first job out of law school was amazing. I loved it. I was clerking for a federal judge. Most lawyers look back and say their clerkship, if they were lucky enough to get one, was the best job they ever had. And that's definitely true for me. It was just phenomenal. You basically get to like put your federal judge hat on for a year and see everything that goes on behind the scenes of a courthouse. And that was amazing. And I had the best judge anybody could ask for. So that was great. And then I started work in big firms because a federal clerkship is almost always a 1-year gig, sometimes a 2-year gig. But typically they're just 1 year. So I did that for a year, loved it, was really sad to leave. But yeah, then went to a big law firm and did not love it quite as much.
Okay.
It's a very diplomatic way to say that. Yeah.
Fair enough. And before we keep migrating on, do you have any questions about a little of their background, Carl, or anything?
I don't think so. I'm really curious to hear the answer to the next question because I don't think I have ever asked you two about this. And if I have, I've forgotten the answer, so excuse me. But how do you know about financial independence? What was your introduction to financial independence?
Oh, this is going to be fun. So as a extension of me not completely loving the work that I was doing, I one day just kind of stumbled across this blog, which this is the story that so many people have, right? It was Mr. Money Mustache. And yeah, I was just like a moth to a flame, completely, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this is it. I have to do something different with my life, and this is the way out. So I think that was in 2014. That's my guess.
That
Maybe
sounds
it was
about
a
right.
bit later than that. But yeah, I very distinctly remember I got home from work that day, and I think we call it the bathtub story.
Yeah.
Because I was in the bath, and Robert got home, and he like came in the bathroom and was like, "Hey, we're just like chatting about our day." I was just trying to relax from kind of a stressful day, and I was like, "Okay, so listen, we have to have a serious conversation. I've just found this thing, this idea, and we're gonna redirect our entire life plan, and this is what we're going to do." And Robert was sort of like,
No.
yeah, in a word, thought that I had completely lost my mind. And I very distinctly remember you saying, like, just find a job you like, like, just quit and do something you enjoy. And yeah, it's kind of a weird story of how things evolved over time, because I think we kind of flip-flopped a lot as to which one of us was like more devoted to the idea of me staying at my job and trying to save a lot versus just like, let's quit and I'll do something I like better. So yeah, it was kind of a slow evolution as Robert kind of came more on board and then fell off again and then kind of came more on board. I don't know.
Yeah, I certainly struggled with the idea of, hey, we can just not work. I didn't have any idea what I would do with my time or what I would really want to do. And then I started thinking about it and came up with some fun ideas and things that would be interesting and intriguing. And I certainly came around to the idea that, yeah, we don't need to work these big jobs in Dallas that are paying us big salaries and adding a lot of stress and not adding to our happiness. So
I love that you called it the bathtub story. Like you actually have a name for the moment.
Yeah, it was a pivotal moment.
Yeah, I remember it in my life too. I remember like it was yesterday because it was one of the inflection points in my life. Like that day, my life was not on the surface any different, maybe at that time, but everything changed. Like it was like before, like AC or BC, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's amazing. So I'm curious, Robert. I have a 2-part question for you. You said you were kind of resistant. You didn't know what to do with your time. How long did it take you to come around? So that's question number 1. And question number 2 is, did you have any doubts about the financial part of it? Because when I hear people who doubt fire, it's often the money. They're like, oh, I'm so worried I'm going to run out of cash, or it's the finances they worry about, not necessarily the meaning and how they're going to spend their time. So how long did it take you to come around, and were you worried about the finance?
So it probably took me maybe 2 or 3 months, one good weekend of thinking about things that if I didn't have anything going on, I could do whatever I wanted. What would that look like, and how could that last for decades? And I started to come up with a whole bunch of ideas that I thought were interesting and fun and outdoorsy and exciting to me. And I was like, maybe I could get around this. But I do remember like the next weekend, back at that time, we were members of a golf club, and was playing golf with a couple of my work buddies, and I had this crazy conversation with Carla the other day. She wants to retire at like 35. And they're like, wait, what? Isn't she a lawyer? Hasn't she gone to school for a long time for all that? Doesn't she want to keep doing it? And yeah, it took a little while to come around on that.
Yeah, I was so mad at him that he had told his like work buddies about it.
Yeah.
So mad. Yeah. There was a lot of fighting going on at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just struggling to get on the same page and figure out what we were going to do and how it was all going to shake out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit tense for a while, but fortunately we're good communicators and we figured everything out.
We got through it.
Yeah.
The second part, the financial side of it, really wasn't a big barrier or hurdle for us. I think we're both naturally strong savers. We're relatively frugal people who haven't had expensive tastes. And the math just made sense. So when I looked at the numbers, we'd certainly thought about how we were accruing savings without any real particular plan. And it seemed clear that we could make the money work out okay. So that was much less of a stressful thing for me than a lot of people who come to Fi.
Okay. I have one more probing question, and then I'll turn it back to Doug for a second. So I don't think a lot of relationships work well if both people are type A or both people are type B. If both people are type A, they'd be fighting all the time. If both people are type B, nothing would ever get done. So I think of my relationship, and I'm definitely the type A person. I'm the one. Very on edge, and yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with that. But in your relationship, it seems maybe Carla's more the type A person, and you're more the laid back one, Robert. Is that accurate, or am I?
I don't know.
I think both of us are very close to the line of type A and type B. I certainly have a type A aspect to my personality, but I also really, really enjoy just turning that off. And yeah, the more I've like thought about what kind of person I really am, I think I am much closer to type B. Or maybe that's just been in the last few years of kind of like decompressing and stepping away from the big law job. But yeah, I think you kind of had to be more type A to do what I used to do. And now I've been very relieved to, at the very least, like turn the volume way down on that.
And I'm a serial procrastinator who lives under the veneer of flexibility, I guess. Like that's my big mantra. I got to have flexibility. And so I am resistant to any kinds of long-term specific plans or anything too crazy. And Carla is a big distant planner.
I'm much more of a planner.
She drags me along.
Yeah. So I toyed with the idea of starting an FI blog over the years, and I always thought I would call it flexifucking-ability because Robert would just say that word to me so much, like, just hang on a little longer. We'll have so much more flexibility if you do that. And yeah, I just got so frustrated hearing that word. Like, but what does that even mean to you? What are we going to do with all of that flexibility? Like, let's make an actual plan. And yeah, now I feel grateful for the flexifucking-ability that we actually do have right now. So I guess it was all worth it in the end. But yeah.
All right. It's interesting. I think Elizabeth and I are kind of in the same position in a lot of ways. And one observation, because I don't think I'm really type A, except for certain areas. So I wonder if like certain areas, like you want to actually drive. You're both nodding. So is that maybe accurate?
I think for me, I'm really reluctant to start something, but once I get into it, I become kind of type A about it, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, like just with little stuff around the house, we're so amazed by people like, especially you, Carl, like you just do all this like stuff around the house and you fix things, and we're so bad about that. And I feel like I have to be the engine to get you motivated to do it. And then once I've done that, you're like, leave me alone. You're going to mess it up. You're going to do it wrong. Let me do it. But yeah, like if I didn't get you going, nothing would ever happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's rewind. You graduated in 2008, you said, and then did the clerkship. Is that the right term?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So about a year, then you started doing what kind of law?
So I started out doing tax work, which was frustrating for a number of reasons. The first was that it was 2009 by the time I started at the big firm. And as you probably recall, that was not an awesome time for the economy. So yeah, my job that I had lined up that I was supposed to start after my clerkship actually told me, please don't come for a while, like take a few more months and maybe we'll be ready for you when we're done, which was very common. I had a lot of friends from law school who were all in the same boat. So yeah, I got there finally, and there just wasn't that much work to do. Like everybody was hungry for work and it was really tense. So I wasn't as busy as I wanted to be, but it was actually more stressful than being busy like I was later, because we had to hit a certain number of hours every year that we were supposed to bill. So if we weren't doing that, then you knew you were kind of like on the chopping block and not looking good. And so yeah, that was an extremely stressful period of time, and it didn't really change. Like I was there for about 3 years, and the whole time was just not great. Like I felt like my legal career was kind of floundering, and yeah, it just was very frustrating. And it was frustrating for us too as a couple, because like we felt like I had to be at the office all the time in case a little shred of work came up. I had to be there to be the one to grab it. So even though I wasn't like doing a lot of work, I had to physically be at the office all the time. So yeah, we didn't take any vacations at all, I don't think, while I was at my first firm. And then I finally decided I wanted to do something a little bit different and needed to transition out of that firm. So I started looking for something else, ended up doing just more general commercial litigation. And then at that firm, I had plenty to do. It was very, very busy, which at first was so awesome. I was so excited to finally feel like, things were taking off for me, and it was great. And then it took about 1.5 years or so for the kind of the shine to wear off of that, and to be like, is this really what I want to do for the next 30, 40 years? And yeah, start wanting some change.
Then were you generally happy at your job during that time?
So I drew the winning lottery ticket coming out of school, right? My first job out of college was just amazing, right? I picked this company where everybody really seemed to like it, and this kind of small division where we were really excited about what we were doing. I loved the people I was working with. I loved the work I was doing. And so I'm just in this nice little bubble. I don't know if I've ever met anybody who likes their job as much as mine. So, yeah.
That's ridiculous. And are you still working in the same company?
I still work there. Yeah. I love it. They're fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's been such a part of my life. I don't really want to leave. I mean, it's been excellent. So I have that. Carla is coming to me every few months with some other alternative career idea, whatever came in her head that month, is like, hey, maybe I could go do this, or I'll go do something else. And it's like, it'll get better. Just give it some time. Give it some time.
Yeah.
Give it some time. 5 more years. Give it some time.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it was about 5 years from when we first discovered the idea of financial independence and when we finally quit. So now we're working again, but we quit. So.
So how many hours a week were you working, Carla? And was that, I always think of the book, The Firm. I know that's probably not how lawyers really operate, especially the mob aspect. But in the beginning of the book, this attorney is just working like 100 hours a week or something like that. And how many hours were you working? And Robert, was that stressful for you because you're sitting at home watching the Brady Bunch and Carla's trying to pick up these shreds of work?
So it varied a lot, like a lot. I had times when I was just insanely slammed. We had one case that we worked on 7 days a week, probably, 12, 13, 14 hours a day for 3 or 4 months in a row. And that was really tough. Yeah, that was very tough. But mostly it was much more reasonable than that. It was, so the thing about being a lawyer is you keep track of your time in 6-minute increments, like you bill 0.1 hours, 0.2 hours to your client. So you are supposed to be pretty meticulous with that. I tried to be. I think it varies from lawyer to lawyer just how careful with it they are, but I tried to be cautious with it and like actually take time out if I, stopped and surfed the internet for a while, or if I stopped to chat with a coworker, got up to go to the bathroom, or, like you really are supposed to keep track of your time pretty carefully. which means that if you're in the office for like 10 or 11 hours, you may have only billed like 8. So, yeah, I was in the office a lot. Robert has always worked a lot too. And I also think you had so much more of a social aspect at work than I did. Like for me, it was much more bury my head. And like when I was there, I wasn't talking to hardly anybody.
Yeah, I think I probably adapted my work schedule to almost align with Carla's. So I would be totally unproductive for huge chunks of the day, walking around the building and like basically bringing the water cooler with me, interrupting other people while they were being productive. And then finally, when everyone left for the day, I'd be able to sit down and get some work done and stay caught up on things. So like on a normal Monday to Friday, we kind of had pretty similar schedules. The weekend is where it got to be a lot different. No one was asking me to come in on the weekend routinely to do a lot of stuff. Occasionally weird things would happen, but it seemed like there were a few weekends where Carla wasn't working on at least one day. And so that was a little bit of friction, but at the same time, I had hobbies and other friends, and it'd just be an opportunity for me to go play some golf or do something else while Carla was busy working.
Yeah, I feel like we're coming across as total douchebags.
We are.
Lawyers and golfing, and we don't do that anymore for the audience. We're not as douchebaggy as we sound, I hope.
No, you guys transitioned out of that, which
Yeah.
we will transition out of that period too. Yeah. We wanted to make you seem really bad so that you'll come out shining on the other side of this. So,
Good
okay.
job. Good
Thanks,
job.
Doug.
In 2014, I take it you probably Googled something like how to retire early, how to quit your job, something like that. You found Mr. Money Mustache. You had the bathtub conversation where I assume you had the upper hand. You lawyered him. He's convinced after 3 or 4 months or something. So how does the plan get set in motion?
I don't know. I feel like that's a harder one to answer. I think it was very slow, and our number changed a lot over the course of time because we just, Carl, you were asking if Robert was worried about money. I think I was actually more worried about money, even though I was the one who was more desperate to make a change. I've always been had more fear around the money subject than Robert has. So, yeah, I was to the point where I would sit down and be like, okay, this is going to be an okay number. We'll work towards this. And they'd be like, no, we're going to need more than that. Like, what if this happens and what if that happens? So, I don't know.
So I think I remember there being some weekends where I was thinking about what would we do with all this time? Like, how would we do something that would make us happy and, really enjoy life? And I came on this idea, like, what if we went and hiked the Appalachian Trail? I think that was the first one of those kind of big epic type things that came to my mind as something that I'd want to do. And we started talking about other similar kinds of things. And just sort of had that as maybe we could do this sort of thing at some point, but we can't do that till the dogs die. Right. That was really what was driving our timetable back then. We had 2 dogs. They weren't young, but they weren't old either. And I was adamant that, hey, we can't do any of the big things that we're talking about possibly doing until the dogs die. And so I guess how the ball got moving was, well, let's be ready.
Yeah. That was such a difficult thing. Both of us, but especially me, I love dogs so much. They were such a big part of our lives. And now we have a new dog who is very much a big part of our lives. But, I loved those dogs so much. They were just like our kids. And to look at them and think like, I can have a better life when you die was just the worst feeling in the world. I felt
real.
like such an asshole thinking like that. But, we wanted them to live a long time and we loved them. And when one of them passed away much earlier than we expected, he had cancer in his neck. And we, just for the record, like we took him to the vet we did all the treatment. We took care of him as well as anybody could have, I think. But it did eventually get him. So he passed away when he was not quite 10, I think. And I was devastated. But maybe a week or two after he was gone, I was like, okay, one left. And yeah, I know that makes me sound like a horrible human being. There's no other way to spin it, but that's, yeah, it really is kind of true. Like we were going to go take off and have some adventures, and they were like our kids, and we weren't just going to abandon them. So it was kind of like okay, well, we're in this for your lifetime. So yeah.
Yeah, and so we also, for our adventures, we're going to be doing some big hiking type things. That's kind of a seasonal thing. So it was sort of really easy to sort of say, okay, we'll work for another year. Like it's too late to go plan to go change our life to go do that next year. The dogs are still doing well, so that's not going to happen. And then it eventually became a question of, well, how many more years are we going to do a one more year kind of thing?
All right. And then you mentioned trying to figure out the target number, and how did you reconcile that?
I honestly don't know if we ever did. I think it just got to a point where we felt like the money was in a good situation. We were feeling like we probably were going to want to go back to work at some point. And so it just started to seem like, okay, we don't need to worry about hitting a specific number if we feel sure that we want to work in some capacity going forward. So yeah, the timeline became more about the dogs really than about the money. I know that sounds terrible and insane, but it was kind of true. So yeah, we just got to a point where the money was good, and we felt like, let's just make it happen.
Got it.
So
Yeah, I think what you just said there is very powerful, and a lot of people should consider. Like when I found fire, my idea was I would work, and that stop, and that was it. It was black and white. But you said something that I think has a lot of value to people, and what others should consider. You said you would always plan to go back to work, right? So fire wasn't going to be an all or nothing thing. And I think I first heard about this idea from a Mad Scientist interview with Michael Kitces, and Michael Kitces kind of said the same thing. I guess he has a lot of clients that want to retire early. He's like, well, why don't you consider doing what you just said, maybe taking a sabbatical and taking some time off, and then maybe you'll want to go back to work. Again, you don't have to worry about money as much. You don't have to worry about finding meaning and all that. You can take it for a test drive. And I think now something like that is more easier to do than ever. You think of the old days with our parents. You got your job and you worked there for 40 or 50 years and you quit. Like no one ever took sabbaticals unless they were some extreme situation. But now I think it's more accepted, and it's not going to look as crazy if you have a 6-month gap in your resume. And I think a lot of employers might even value that. Hey, you took some time off and you're probably going to come back more refreshed. Maybe you took time off to write a book. You'll probably be a better employee when you do return. So it's not nearly the strange thing it used to be. And I think it's a great idea, and I wish I would have considered it when I discovered fire.
yeah. I think we were of the mindset that we wanted to get to a place where if like the economy tanked while we were out adventuring and we couldn't find a job for a long time getting back, we would be in great shape. And maybe if we never worked again, like we would still be okay. But yeah, not to a point where we're like, okay, we've got so much money that we feel 1,000% sure we'll never have to work again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was kind of a hybrid, I guess, between Fi and doing sort of a mini retirement.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky, right? We don't have any kids. We had good jobs. We had frugal lifestyles just starting out. So the money side of things was a lot easier for us than I think for other folks. And we realized we're pretty lucky in that sense. Mm-hmm. On the idea of sabbaticals, I was going to say, there's a guy at my office who took a 4-month-long vacation about a year and a half before we decided to do some big adventures. And it was welcomed. He told me about it about a year before he did it. We were on a way back from our project site, and he said, hey, yeah, I'm going to do this big Alaska adventure with my family next summer. I'm going to take 4 months off and drive up there and go do this incredible adventure. He was telling me about the time he told one of the vice presidents about it. They were like, how do you have that much vacation? How are you going to do that? He said, no, I don't. I just figured you guys would either let me do it or I'd quit and hope you're still looking for somebody with my skills when I got back. And they're like, no, you're too valuable. We like you. We want you to stay with us. We'll figure it out. We'll make it work. And when they did that with him, I knew they'd do the same sort of thing with me. And actually, the company has now implemented a recharge break policy where you can like bank vacation time and save it up to take, I think, 4 months off at a time in the future, like mini sabbaticals to take a break from work, recharge, come back refreshed, and be excited to work again.
That's awesome. Are they hiring?
They are. We got some openings in Colorado, Carl.
I don't know if I'd have any value. I could probably get you water or change the toilet paper or something like that.
We need all kinds of roles.
All kinds of rules. Good one.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the day you came home and told me that guy had talked to you and told you he was doing that. And we were just so excited by that. I felt like maybe we do have a good shot at you just taking a sabbatical instead of pulling the plug entirely.
Okay. So let's talk about what you did after you quit. And we'll come back to the quitting thing. But since you opened up that thread of doing stuff, because I know you drove to Alaska, but you did some other stuff too. So you started to investigate what you could do with your time. How'd you make the decision? What did you end up doing right when you freed up?
So what we decided we wanted to do was through hike the Pacific Crest Trail. So we thought about a bunch of different challenges and fun things we could go do with our time. And we decided the Pacific Crest Trail, it's a 2,650 mile continuous footpath from Mexico to Canada that goes through California, Oregon, and Washington. We decided it would just be a blast to give that a try. We'd seen a bunch of videos of other people who'd done it, read a bunch of blogs, encountered other people's fun stories, and decided it would be the adventure of a lifetime and just a great beginning to a new phase in our life. And so was it March 23rd, something like that? March of 2019, we set off in an attempt to walk from Mexico to Canada on the Pacific Crest Trail. And that was kind of the beginning of our big adventure.
Yeah, it was just the most fun I think I've probably ever had. It was so great out there. We just loved it. So yeah, we did not finish because of me. Robert, I have no doubt, unless something catastrophic had happened, would have finished without me. But we made it to the entrance to the Sierra Nevada, about 700 miles in, and were confronted by a wall of snow. We did this in 2019, so for any PCT buffs out there, if you go back and look, like there's a lot of stuff about what a crazy snow year it was. And there was a 2-week snowstorm that was rolling in, dumping 2 more weeks worth of snow on top of what was already there. So we decided to take a little time off and just had this amazing, we were with the coolest group of people you could ever imagine on planet Earth. They were just fantastic.
We met them out there, I should add. We went out there with just the two of us with this kind of plan to hike and do our own thing on our own, and quickly learned that the people were the most incredible part of it, which I think we all find is the case in almost anything we do.
So we got lucky and just met a bunch of great people that they call it a tramily, your trail family. So we did just have this incredible group. So most of us took some time off together waiting for the snow to melt. And then we got back on trail. I had some pretty bad ankle problems leading up to that. And then I think that taking the time off maybe actually hurt it a little bit because the muscles that were supporting the tendons that aren't in great shape got weaker. So we got back on trail after waiting out some snow. And almost immediately my ankle was just crashed and burned. It was terrible, super swollen, just hiking maybe a mile an hour on some of the easiest trail that we'd done.
Yeah, we were just past, was it Lassen Volcanic National Park? Mm-hmm. And the trail is totally flat. You're going in Northern California. It's not super aggressive. And Carla's going less than a mile an hour with, she's dehydrating with sobbing going down her cheeks.
It really did hurt. It was terrible.
It's not good.
So yeah, even with a bunch of Aleve, vitamin I, as hikers like to call it, ibuprofen, it was just in really bad shape. So we decided it just wasn't a good call to keep going. That I was going to do it more damage than we wanted to do long term. So I decided to stop hiking, went back to where we left our car with Robert's family in Louisiana. I got our car, drove back out, and we thought maybe Robert can keep going and I'll just be sort of support on the side and have the car and, not hike, but kind of be along for the ride. And it was just so depressing. It was such a bummer, like not getting to do the adventure with him that we planned to do for so long. It was just really frustrating. And so, yeah, and we had been leading up for so long to breaking away from the jobs that were so life-consuming and, having some great adventures together. And it just didn't feel right to just more or less like split up for long periods of time. So Robert very kindly decided to stop hiking and come hang out with me again. And then we had a great time. We drove all the way up to Alaska. We went through Oregon and Washington, hit all the national parks there. Just saw a bunch of beautiful things. We kept camping the whole time, so we were still getting that sort of like outdoor experience, which was fantastic. And so we kind of car camped for another like 3 months or so, all the way up through Alaska, Canada, Montana, Wyoming, and then here. And we stopped here and checked it out, did a little recon mission.
Carl gave us the strong arm to
He did.
to move to Longmont.
Yeah. And then after we came here and did our little recon mission, then we went to Europe for like 3 months. Because we had not, I think we took 2 vacations in the 10 years that I worked as a lawyer. One of them was kind of forced on us. It was your sister getting married in Hawaii. And then what was the other one? I don't remember.
I feel like that was it. I think it was just one.
Yeah.
Wait, in how many years?
10.
10 years? You had one vacation?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds a little more dramatic than it is. So I went to these conferences as part of my work, at least 3 times a year. And they were usually in pretty cool places. And sometimes Robert would get to come along. So those were like 4-day weekends that were pretty fun. That was kind of paid for through work. And so we did little stuff like that. But I think that was it. We were laser focused on saving and, making our careers go as well as they could and building up our incomes before we cut it off. So
I have a couple of follow-up questions. Number one is, will you go back and complete the PCT? Is your ankle condition permanent? And I guess my other question is, after you discovered financial independence, what did you change anything? Obviously, your goal was a little bit different, but what changed in your life? Was it just mindset, or did you learn more about investing and try to focus more on that? So, sorry, 2 vastly different questions there.
So the ankle one, just quickly, it's still not great. I think it's probably going to be kind of a chronic thing forever. So I think my super long distance backpacking days are probably behind me, unfortunately. But I don't know. We'll see. If I actually did a bunch of physical therapy and surgery, maybe, I don't know. But probably we're done with that phase of our life is what I think.
Yeah, more of like a weekend backpacking excursions and day hikes kind of thing.
10-ish miles a day seems to be okay. Instead of 20-ish. But yeah, so that's the quick ankle question. When we found Fi, I do feel like things changed. Robert and I have actually argued about this over the years. I think we dropped our spending quite a bit, and we just weren't tracking back then. But I think we were spending substantially more before we found Fi and started to just cut out sort of mindless spending that wasn't actually doing anything for us.
Yeah, I feel like we really didn't change our lifestyle that much because we were already relatively frugal. But where there was a big difference is what we did with the money that we were saving. We were not particularly wise with the money we were great at saving it, but we didn't do anything productive with our money in a great time to do productive things with your money coming out of the Great Recession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it took us a depressingly long amount of time to realize that investing was a good call. A depressingly long amount of time. Yeah.
Well, we were exactly the same way, and we're a few years older. So we saw really the .com stuff, and then we bought houses right when it was the worst time to buy houses. So anyway, we ended up accumulating money in savings accounts, and then realized that we should invest it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Savings account, that's ahead of us.
That was a step up from a literal checking account. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I was telling you this the other day, Doug, but I distinctly remember we were basically too young to have much at all invested in 2000, 2008 and 9 because I was just graduating. You hadn't been working that long. But yeah, even so, I remember like looking, just watching the news and hearing people talk about the stock market tanking and thinking like, we're so smart. We didn't put any money in that silly old stock market. And that just makes me cringe now to think about it. But yeah, I remember thinking like, that's for risk takers and we're just smart, careful people and we would never do anything like that. So if anybody out there is, young and has that, please don't think that was a terrible way to think.
Yeah. So I think when we learned about FI, we got a lot smarter about investing. We decided putting money in the mattress or in coffee cans in the backyard is not going to be the way to, good financial happiness.
So do you have any examples on maybe where you cut back a little bit? Because I know you said maybe you disagree a little bit. Like, were you eating out more often? I think maybe we ate out a little bit more, even though we didn't eat out as much as a lot of people.
Yeah, I honestly just don't even know, which is the worst part. But I do have a vision of sitting down and looking at our expenses and thinking like stuff could go, but I don't know what it would have been. Maybe we were buying more clothes, like I was buying more work clothes or something. Maybe we were eating out more. Like, I don't know.
When did we get the second Prius?
Oh, yeah. So this is confession time. So
this sounds like a joke. The second Prius. Now you seem like douchebags. No offense, Prius owners. You guys are great.
So I think, just after I finished my federal clerkship, started work at a big law firm, I thought it was critical that I have a really fancy car to go with my fancy big law job. So I don't even want to say it. we bought I don't even remember what you call it. It's a Cadillac.
It's
That's
a Cadillac
the word that
SRX.
Like, yeah. So we did that. And it's true. I deserve the head shaking. And which was so stupid because I was like a first year associate and no one, like I wasn't taking clients for drives. It just wasn't happening. Like they didn't even let me talk to clients, let alone take them out. So yeah, that was not necessary at all. So I think we got that would have been in 2010 maybe. And yeah, we had it for about 5 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, after we woke up to FI, I remember you came home one day and you were like, Robert, I think we need to get rid of the Cadillac. The Cadillac's body color was called Gold Mist. So that's what we called it.
We're just really like upping the douchebag factor a lot.
Well, we mocked the name. We didn't like embrace it. We thought it was silly that somebody would name a paint color that. But anyway, old Gold Mist, Carla's like, it's time to get rid of this. I think we need to trade it in. I was driving a Prius at the time. Still am. Still have it.
Still same car.
And she was coveting it a little bit. I think Carla was a little
coveting your Prius. I just wanted us to make a sound financial decision to get rid of Gold Mist and get something far more sensible. So
I think we cut back in small ways, right? There were the higher maintenance costs with a more expensive vehicle, higher fuel costs with this small SUV, and little things like that. Small changes that we just sort of gradually made. There weren't any big, like, we're going to budget and eat out less than X times a month, or, we're going to change things. I mean, I think maybe we shopped around a little bit more intentionally for insurance and other things that are easy to save some money on, but we didn't. I don't feel like we made major lifestyle changes.
Yeah, which is a point that I really do want to make, is that Robert mentioned earlier just how lucky we are. And it's true. Like, we've had such an enormous amount of privilege and luck in our lives. And both of us have great parents. Mine especially, like, I feel like I should say this so that people don't, think we're... So my parents helped me pay for college and then for the first couple years of law school. And then after that, I was able to earn enough through my summer jobs to take it over from there. Which I should say, college and law school were much cheaper than you might be thinking, because I went to state schools for both, and I was able to get scholarships that cut down on the cost substantially. But yeah, like, we still had such an enormous leg up in life because of the families that certainly that I came from, and you too. So yeah, like I want to make that clear that we know things were so much easier for us than they are for so many people out there, and we're just incredibly lucky. So yeah, I don't want to come across as too preachy, like, look how easy it is. Like, all you have to do is be born into an amazing family who gives you like all the, we're very, very aware of that. But I think it's still super important for people like us to tell their stories because we're not alone. Like, we're definitely in an incredibly lucky position, but I was around a whole heck of a lot of people who came from similarly fortunate, privileged positions, and they still ended up spending money in ways that I think could be improved upon. And maybe it makes them really happy, and that's great. I don't judge anybody if they want to, stay in the lifestyle that I was formerly in and really, spend it up and enjoy the heck out of it. But it wasn't for us.
I think Warren Buffett calls that winning the ovarian lottery, having great parents. And yeah, it's a huge leg up, but we all have privilege too, being born in the United States. Think of what a leg up that is. We could have been born, and I just went to a country where there's not opportunity. You see many of these people, they could have been doctors or attorneys or physicists if they would have been born in a different place, but they're not, and so they don't have these opportunities.
Yeah, it's very true. But yeah, we just we won the country lottery, and then we won the ovarian lottery on top of that for sure. And I think that beyond the fact that my parents helped me pay for school, like they also are just wonderful human beings, and they weren't materialistic people, and they really instilled in me that it was important to not get caught up in that kind of momentum. And so I think even more than giving me a phenomenal education, just helping me to become somebody who didn't get caught up in that mentality and that whirlpool that can just suck you in was even more valuable. So thanks, Mom and Dad.
So when you took the mini retirement sabbatical, did you know how long it was going to be, or it was just open-ended?
Totally open-ended. So I remember freaking out about wanting to tell my boss, right? I really love my job, and I really wanted the door to be open to come back, but I didn't know what coming back might look like. We were living in Dallas, but we didn't like Dallas, right? We knew it wasn't quite the place that we wanted to be. And so we didn't know if we would go back or end up somewhere else. We didn't know if we were going to be gone for a 6-month backpacking adventure and then come back or settle somewhere else, or if we'd be gone for 3 years. We really didn't have it mapped out very specifically. I remember going to my boss, I think it was 9 months before my official end date, I guess, in 2019, to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And it took a lot of trust to go do that, because if there were layoffs or anything like that, I'm sure I would have been the first one to go, someone who's not a long time with the company. But because we didn't know what it was going to look like, we didn't set it up to be a sabbatical or anything like that. It was a clean break with the door that would be open if I ever came to knock. And so it was really uncertain for me. We'd play by ear. Flexibility, right? I mean, that's the goal.
Setting you up, yeah. And then you straight up quit, right? So what was that like? Was that stressful in any way?
Enormously. So I had been planning to do this for, a good while, and thinking, I'm going to do something with my life that I feel more passionate about, that I feel like is better for the world, and certainly less stressful and more fun. But even with all of those years of thinking that, like, coming to it, I just had so much fear and like, wait a minute. Am I sure? Like, do I really want to do this? And, this is pretty cushy. Do we really want to give all of this up? And yeah, I was really struggling with it a lot. And when Robert went and told his boss, it was like, okay, I have to tell mine. Like, we've committed. And I waited a little bit longer than you did, just because I was so terrified, and like, really, it took some time to get the courage up. But yeah, I remember that day that I went and knocked on his door, the practice leader of our section. I was just I don't know. There aren't even words for it. Like, it was beyond terrified. I was just shaking, and I think I started crying when I told him. Yeah, it was a very, very difficult decision to actually pull the plug on it, even with years of thought and planning, and a very difficult moment to actually make it happen and just, turn your life around. But I think Robert and I both had great experiences with telling our employers, because I told mine like 5 or 6 months out ahead too. So they would have plenty of lead time to find somebody else. And they both our employers said to us, just call it a sabbatical. Like, just come back when you're done. Let's commit to calling it a sabbatical, and, you come back on X date. And we both just didn't do it. Your job even offered to give you health care.
Yeah, my manager was fantastic. He worked with the HR group to try to really set up a formal sabbatical program for me. And I felt so bad that we just didn't know what we were going to do. And I felt like I couldn't leave the team hanging. I also didn't think it was right. I was in a leadership position. Other people were going to have to step in and perform my role for a while. And I didn't think it was right to kind of step back on them if I came back afterwards. So it felt right to do the clean break.
Yeah. It was difficult though. Like, because we told them so far in advance, there was a lot of time for them to, put the pressure on and say, like, just make it a sabbatical. Like, what are you doing? It was such a foreign concept that we would just quit and leave everything open-ended. So, but yeah, it was extremely stressful and extremely difficult to actually do the thing that we'd been planning to do for a long time.
How long did it take you to feel good about it? Was it immediate relief after you had that conversation? And I think of the sunk cost too, because, you hear about lawyers or physicians pursuing financial independence, and you've got a lot of sunk costs into your education and the time you spent studying for the bar and all that school time. So. Yeah.
Well, maybe I didn't say this, but I am still practicing. I'm doing something radically different. I have a wonderful little immigration firm here in town that I work with. And so I haven't flushed my law degree down the toilet, which feels good. I'm glad that I'm still putting it to use. But how long did it take to feel better? I remember my very last day with the firm, and just feeling pretty amazing that day. That was a good night. Remember, they did a little mini send-off thing for me, just like a happy hour, like they do for a lot of people when they leave. And I remember walking away from the little bar where we were having the happy hour and just feeling pretty damn good. But I don't know. Did it take you a long time to feel good?
I always knew that the door was open. I remember being really sad on my last day at work. So I'd had a lunch planned with a guy who took me to lunch for my interview 15 years beforehand on my last day. And I was excited to just have lunch with him, catch up. And it turns out he was taking me to a surprise kickball game that some of my coworkers had organized. At my office, we had an annual kickball tournament every year, and maybe I was more into it than I should have been and really had fun with it.
Obsessed is the word you're looking for, with kickball, just for the record.
We also played in a co-ed kickball league with some of my friends from work. Anyway, they put together this thing and brought Carla out there, and it was just so touching that everybody wanted to come out and hang out with me on my last day, and I had a hard time keeping it together. And I think I stayed at the office till almost 7:00 that night on a Friday on my last day, just because I didn't want to go. It made me really sad. But, once I was done with work and I didn't have to worry about stress of any projects or making sure things were successful, and I knew that everything was safely in someone else's hands, I felt good about it because I gave them such a long lead time to make for a smooth transition. It didn't take long. We had some small prep backpacking trips before we went on the PCT, and that gave me a lot of good time to think and really adjust quickly to, hey, we moved within a few weeks of my last day. So it changed pretty fast, and I think we both felt really comfortable quickly and felt really good about what we'd done. Yeah.
Very exciting. And I can imagine it's kind of like the first day of school or something when you're moving out and a big adventure is coming your way.
Yeah, it really was great. Yeah, I know things are different for everybody. But I would highly recommend to anyone that if they're planning on pulling the plug on their careers, that they do it. And it's something similar to the way that we did, because it felt like such a great transition to actually, doing something that was really active and different and getting to get out and travel, which, like I said, we didn't take a vacation for so long. We had a huge travel bug that we really needed to scratch, travel itch that we needed to scratch. And so we just had such a blast.
Well, and we kind of had this like multi-year winding down of our lives in Dallas too, right? So we had a big house in the suburbs that we lived in, and we'd kind of see this milestone of, okay, we're probably going to do this in a couple of years. Let's put the house up for sale and go live in an apartment that gives us a lot more flexibility to go leave when we want to. And so we did that, and we dropped down to one car, and just kind of our life was slowly consolidating, leading to this moment. And so it was just this, natural swing in the other direction, moving away from where we've been going into the freedom that we've been so looking forward to.
Was there anything that was different than you expected with the sabbatical period there?
I feel like I just sound like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. Everything is all rosy, but it really was. Like, everything was so great and so much, like, even better than we could have expected it. Like, the PCT was just so much fun. We met the best people. And yeah, then even when it was just the two of us, like, it was great to have it just be the two of us again, because we had basically like no alone time on trail. Like, you're just surrounded by hikers the whole time. And so that was really great. And just felt like we had time to really talk and reconnect in a way we hadn't in a long time. And then, Europe was so amazing because we'd never been anywhere. Like, we'd barely ever left the country. I think I'd been to Canada once. And like, that was it. So we were just these, wide-eyed little kids, like, out on this amazing adventure. And it was pretty fantastic.
I think I was kind of surprised by just the openness of other people and my willingness to engage with them when I didn't have my own work and life stress in my face, right? I remember we started the PCT, and on the first day we'd stopped and had lunch. We were way ahead of schedule for where we needed to be for the day. I think we only had like 5 miles left to go, 7 hours before dark or something. And there was a group of people sitting there just taking a break, 10 minutes after we'd taken a break. And Carl's like, we should stop and talk to these folks. I'm like, oh, come on. That's crazy. We got to keep moving. We got to make some time. We got to make progress here. And, I finally let my guard down and sat down and talked with those people and became good friends with them. And I feel like we just had so many similar situations like that, not just on the trail where you're in an environment where everyone is like this, but when we were car camping, moving our way up to Alaska, and, when we were in Europe, staying at people's houses and Airbnbs, I feel like we just interacted with people in a way that I would be too self-absorbed to have done back when we were living in Dallas, doing our normal working thing. If we were going to do an extended weekend somewhere with one of Carla's work trips, I wanted to pack as much as we could into that, right? It was really important to be focused on the things that were fun to us. And maybe I wouldn't talk to the random stranger in a restaurant who happened to be a local who was super entertaining and would be, make the experience super memorable. Whereas once we took out all the normal stresses of work and stuff, I felt like I was much more open to that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think both of us discovered we're more extroverted than we thought we were when we quit and had more time and just like more ability to connect with people. Yeah, that was a plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thought I've had about financial independence is if you really want to see how strong your relationship is with your partner, both quit your jobs and then you're around each other 24/7. There's someone I know of, not any famous person, but they became financially independent and they both left and they were divorced a couple of years later. And I could see that happening because if you've got two high-powered people, you might not be seeing each other that often. You're going to be at your jobs, coming home at 6, you cook dinner, you go to bed, and then go back to work. And if you have kids, it's even worse because you're shuttling your kids around. So the interaction you have with your spouse might be, I feel like in my own life sometimes, is minutes per day. And geez, I'm retired. But yeah, I think that's a true test that it seems like you both came out with flying colors. It was definitely a positive. You were, even though you interacted with lots of people, you still car camped and drove up to Alaska with each other. So do you think you came out stronger? Because that's my impression, hopefully.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we have such a great relationship. This just goes back to being so lucky. So we got married really young, and I always say, I feel like there's a lot of, it's a risk to get married that young, and you don't really know exactly who you're going to turn out to be. And again, we just got so lucky with them, the way that we've grown together, and we've both been excited about taking a new direction. And yeah, it's just been great. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we would fight we fight all the time, but I don't know. I genuinely feel like it's kind of fun fighting. Like we would on the PCT, I'm pretty
Lawyer.
sure.
Sorry, like a lawyer would say that.
Every single night and every single morning. And we did this for, months on end. And still we would always fight about exactly how to set the tent up. Because Robert,
Because you have to do it correctly.
Yeah, what's the right way to do it? Who does it right? How about that?
I wouldn't, do it quite tautly enough, or when I folded it up, I just wouldn't do it quite compactly enough. It makes me crazy just thinking about it. But yeah, but I don't know. It was always just fun. We would fight about it and rah at each other for a few minutes, and then it was oh yeah, look where we are. Look how great our life is, and yeah. So yeah, I think if your relationship can survive all of those things, you're probably in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a 4x7 tent, right? I mean, 4 foot by 7 foot space every night next to one another. No TV, no internet, no normal distractions that people have in their home lives. It's we definitely got stronger over that time for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and how do you keep, one question, how do you keep the magic of financial independence alive? The hedonic treadmill works both ways. You get used to your situation no matter how good or bad it is too. You hear about people living in bad situations, and it's human nature to adjust to it. I was thinking about this the other day because Doug and I, traffic is a common source of our stress, and I was cursing traffic at 10 a.m. or something like that. Why are all these cars out there? Where are these people going? But then I started thinking, you're such a stupid idiot. You're so lucky you're not stuck in an office somewhere. I think I was driving to go on a hike too. What an asshole you are for cursing your beautiful life at this moment. And that's something I struggle with, just being thankful, because the novelty wears off and you're not super thankful. And maybe your life is a little bit different because you did go back to work, so maybe you do have more appreciation for it. But what do you think about that?
So for me, I felt like we weren't quite sure what we were going to do, right? We were hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. When we got off trail and got in the car, we talked about some different adventures, right? We talked about getting a sailboat and cruising around the world, right? We thought about doing that sort of thing. And we just didn't really know what it was going to end up looking like till we were in Alaska at one point and decided that we really wanted to be part of a community. That was kind of the next thing for us. We wanted to settle down somewhere where we could make some friends and be part of a community. You're looking at me like am I telling a mistruth? Or
no, I was just wondering if we should tell the story about the tires and how that was a moment for me, because
yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I knew that one. Yeah.
So we were road tripping in Alaska in our Prius, which is not the ideal car for driving around Alaska. Which we didn't know this until we'd been up there, but the Alaskan roads are not in good shape. I think it's something to do with the ice and snow. It just really creates a ton of potholes and bumpy roads, and we were not prepared for that. We had decent tires for city driving, but nothing prepared at all for Alaskan roads. And we had 3 blowouts in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, on 2 different occasions. One was 1 tire and the other was 2. And I think it was the second blowout where we were sitting there in the middle of nowhere that I kind of had a moment where I was I could just envision us being on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean as opposed to on a road in the middle of Alaska, having some sort of terrible mechanical problem. And I was just I don't think I'm ready for this. Maybe when we're older and we have less life to live and more money accumulated to get nicer stuff and more backups, maybe at that point we can do sailing, but I don't want to be in this situation in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And that was kind of a moment for me where I was the sailing thing, I'm not ready for that. But also, we did want to be part of a community. As I said, we did get more extroverted, and yeah, we're wanting to be more part of a community.
But I do remember we were traveling around Europe for a few months, and towards the end of that, I feel almost spoiled saying this, but we were kind of tired of traveling, right? We kind of wanted a little bit more of a permanent home base. And so we were kind of excited to press pause on some crazy adventuring and go back to something a little bit more conventional, but having a lot more control over what that looked like, right? So moving to Longmont was a way for us to have access to some of the things that we really liked that we didn't like about Dallas. We're part of a small community that we were excited to join and meet new people and engage.
Have the mountains.
Yeah. And then keeping the magic alive. I don't know. I think we're lucky, like I said, that we've always had pretty low level taste, except for Gold Mist. About that.
You got to try it before you know you don't like it. Like, yeah, the NSX, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we did like Gold. I mean, it was fun, right?
Oh, it's a great car. I mean, what's not to like? It was super fancy. It was really luxurious, but yeah, it didn't align with my long-term vision of things. So,
but yeah, so I think having time flexibility is what we were really looking forward to, and we have a lot more of that now than we ever did before. It's still relatively new for us, so I suppose it's possible that in a few years we'll think, "Man, are we getting what we want out of this?" But so far, it's been pretty great.
yeah. I think the flexibility that we have really does make a lot of difference, because we know that, well, if we get tired of, working and doing this, we'll try something else, or we could move somewhere else, or we could, do a lot of different things that we have the freedom and the flexibility to do. So, yeah, I don't know. For me, I tell Robert all the time that I can't believe we get to live this life. Like, I know so many people say that FI for them didn't really make them much happier and didn't really make that big of a change in their life. It really genuinely did for me. Like, just getting to leave behind that super, super stressful career that I was working in before has made a very significant difference. And I don't want to poop all over my old job, because it really was great in a lot of ways. I got to work with some exceptionally smart people and some really good people, and in some ways it was fun. I just don't think it was the perfect fit for me, and it was really hard to feel like a square peg in a round hole for a lot of years. So, but yeah, I'm sure as time goes on, we will have to, put more work and effort into gratitude and keeping the magic alive, which is a good way to put it. But yeah, for the last, since we quit in early 2019, things have just been exceptionally great.
I'm not sure. It seems like you two are pretty well adjusted. I think you're doing a pretty good job. I'm taking notes here, half for the show, but maybe more so for myself. Like, these people have got it right, and maybe me not so much. So I appreciate the wisdom.
I don't know about that, but we've got a great, just a really great setup right now. I'm working with two amazing girls, running this firm. It's just a ton of fun, and I feel really good about the work that we're doing. And I have a ton of flexibility. I feel like that's the theme of the day. But I have a lot of more flexibility with my schedule, and I can kind of work when I want to work, and I'm not chained to a desk all day. And Robert gets to work from home now, and that's not a COVID thing. It was before COVID, and will continue. So he's got just more freedom to sleep more and drive less, and some days he works in his pajamas, and yeah, it's
depends on how many Zoom calls.
That's true.
But I also think that the confidence that I have, if my job changes, right? Let's say people change, leadership is different, priorities evolve, and I don't like it anymore. It's nice to know that I don't have to do it anymore, right? If I'm not having fun, I don't have to do it. And I can find other ways to make sure that I am happy and fulfilled. So,
and you've gone through a big decision-making process and quitting, and you've done it before. I know we realized that when we started making big decisions that drastically changed things, that we were much happier, and we were scared to do it before. We just were complacent because things came relatively easily. Just take the job, stick in the job. It's fine, pretty safe. But now you have, like you said, the confidence. That's the exact word. Now you can walk away if you want to. So
Yeah, if I want to go back on the trail and punish my digestive system and go hike a bunch again, that's an option. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Carl has a specific question. We'll go on a little tangent here. If you want to go ahead and do it now.
Robert, that is such a great segue because we talked a couple weeks ago and you told me the McDonald's story from the Pacific Coast Trail. So can you tell the audience about that McDonald's and what you ate? And then I'll have a follow-up question or two. So I'm sorry in advance, audience, and Robert and Carl.
Sure. Yeah. So on the Pacific Crest Trail, you're hiking, 15, 20 miles a day. You're carrying 25 to 35 pounds on your back. You're burning calories left and right. And you hit towns every, 4 to 7 days, typically. In Southern California, the trail passes right next to a highway. It crosses, I think it's I-15 at Cajon Pass. It's between the stops of Big Bear and the next one.
It's not Idlewild. What is it?
It's north.
I'll
anyway,
think of it.
it'll come to us.
Okay.
Anyway, you pass a highway and 0.4 of a mile off the trail is a McDonald's. There's like a sign. Everybody knows about it. And there are a couple ways you can do this town stretch, right? It's a full week for most people between Big Bear and the next spot, which means a lot of food to carry. But there's a McDonald's there. There's nothing else really to go for. There's no grocery store or other amenities right there. I mean, you could get an Uber or something, but I'd heard about people doing what they call a McDonald's challenge, and basically trying to eat nothing but McDonald's from that McDonald's to the next town 30 miles away.
Yeah.
I decided I wanted to be a hiking legend and do the same sort of thing. And so I loaded up on the McDoubles and the McNuggets, put a couple of McDoubles in the hip belt chamber and pulled those out for a snack as I would go. I think I ended up leaving town with 12 McDoubles. They're like a double cheeseburger with only one slice of cheese. I kind of calculated out the calorie value there. I think it was another 79 cents for that extra slice of cheese, but only another like 80 calories. Didn't seem worth it to me. So still got to bring that frugality on the trail. I grabbed 60 McNuggets and got to carefully package those. You don't want them to over steam and whatever you're going to repackage them in get soggy and won't have the flavor you want 48 hours later when you decide to finish eating them. So yeah, for a couple of days I ate nothing but McDonald's, and it was a blast, right? It was a lot of fun.
No one else did this. Like, supposedly as a trail thing, people do this. No one else we knew did this. It was just Robert, just for the record.
Yeah, there weren't other people said they were going to do it, but they didn't really quite embrace the McDonald's as much as I did.
Wait, did Falls do it with you?
Yeah, one of our friends.
Yeah, okay.
Did
One
it.
guy did it.
But he kind of struggled with it. I think he got some McChickens and some McDoubles and immediately decided he did not like it and started giving away food to anyone who would take it and eat it. Whereas I was like, hey, do you have any more? Like, can I get some more of this? All told, in like a 48-hour window, I ended up eating just under 12,000 calories of McDonald's deliciousness. Yeah, it was great.
So you had 12 McDoubles, just reviewing 60 McNuggets. Did you shit yourself the next day? What were there? And you mentioned it was a blast, but I can see that. I can take
Double
that.
entendre.
So the town we were going to is Wrightwood. That's the name of it. Carla's ankle had started to bother her at this part of the trail. And so the McDonald's is right along a highway. And what she decided to do was to go get to Wrightwood ahead of us. She and another hiker who were having some injury issues.
She also had an ankle problem.
They shot forward to Wrightwood. And so I did this stretch of trail with just our friends, right? Carla wasn't with me, which was probably a good thing because it was not my digestive system didn't exactly process it as effectively as I would have liked. Our second night on trail, fortunately, we were at a place that had a pit toilet that we were able to go to. So I took advantage of that feature several times in the night. The tent did not smell particularly good. As you can imagine, the human body can only process McDonald's so fast.
Did we mention it was a 4x7 tent?
Yeah. It was spectacular. And then we got to the town of Wrightwood, made our way to a little Airbnb where we were staying. And I was glad to have a flush toilet there. So one of the fun things that we did while I was eating all these McDoubles is I wanted to think of a fun way to celebrate it. I had these paper McDouble wrappers, right? What can I do as a way to sort of celebrate this, feat of eating all this crazy, disgusting food? And I came up with a few ideas and eventually decided, and this is probably blasphemous, but I decided to make a crown out of it. Obviously, a crown is associated with Burger King, not McDonald's. Right. Didn't come to my mind at the moment.
Burger King's feelings.
But I took these little wrappers and I folded them, not really origami style or anything, but I made a crown that I could wear, made out of McDouble wrappers. And then I was very grateful to wear my crown on the throne in our Airbnb. When we got to town, I basically spent the whole afternoon and evening while other people were doing laundry and grocery shopping and, town responsibilities. I was just on the throne.
Gotcha. Wow.
Oh, man. I should note that we still have the crown and probably will for the rest of our lives. Robert will not let us throw it away.
Oh, you should have worn it for this. Well, next time you're on the show, we'll have to, you'll have to wear the crown.
Bring the crown? Yeah.
Crazy. Well, the good news is you don't have to be on the PCT to do that challenge. Anywhere there's a McDonald's, you can buy all that stuff. Not sponsored, by the way, just, fans of good food.
I suppose we could do a backpacking weekend at Rocky Mountain National Park and
that sounds great.
See a Long's Peak hike fueled by McDoubles.
Funny enough, I've done Long's Peak, and I was a poor college student at the time, so I went and got 2 double cheeseburgers for 99 cents, hiked up, and that's what I ate at the top.
Okay.
It's disgusting.
We are going to do this hike in September, so maybe it's time to relive the good old days, the bad old days.
I'll have to make sure I do some practice hikes in the meantime to build up the abdominal strength to succeed.
Yeah. Crazy.
Man.
Well,
the PCT was fun.
Let's talk about going back to work. So you had this adventure. It sounds like you were not working for about a year. Is that about right?
Mm-hmm.
So you wanted more community. You were sort of setting up roots here in Longmont. You checked out town. Carl helped convince you, and then why'd you go back? Can you just talk about that decision-making process?
So I think it was not too terribly long after we had that moment in Alaska where we were like, okay, sailing is not, I don't think we're ready to do that yet. I should also say my parents, as I have mentioned, are just supremely lovely people, and they were absolutely petrified at the thought of us taking off in a sailboat. So part of the decision to not do it was that I just couldn't do it to my parents. They're such great people. And I thought it would literally kill them with worry to go do this. So we made the decision that we were going to kind of settle down and do something more traditional and not go take off and sail for a while. And I think it was a pretty natural progression after that. It was like, well, if we're going to settle down, you love your job and always have. Do you want to give them a call and see, what the options are? And
yeah, we were in Anchorage. The car was in the shop because one of the blowouts kind of took out some of the front panels, and the headlight was all messed up. And not an ideal situation. We were camping in Anchorage, which I don't recommend. You don't want to tent camp in the middle of a city like Anchorage. It's not ideal.
It was a campground, but it was like a city campground. Yeah, it wasn't great.
Anyway, we were there for a week or so, and I reached out to my old boss and said, look, we've decided we're probably moving to Colorado. Longmont is what we're thinking. Is there a way that I could come back? I've missed it. I've met hundreds of people so far who've had all kinds of different jobs, and nobody seemed to like theirs, but I did, and I really want to go back. And he said, yeah, I bet we can work something out. What's your schedule look like? And at that point, we decided we were going to Europe. We'd already booked out our flights and said in September I'd be able to get back to Dallas. And I went to the office, and met with a few of the leaders that were there, and kind of talked about a few different positions or ideas that I could do remotely. And while we were in Europe, I think I formally applied for something specific, and it worked out really almost trivially for me. I was able to just smoothly go right back to where I was before. A different role, but same company, working with the same people. And it was easy, and it felt really natural. So,
Yeah. So yeah, once you had that lined up, I sort of felt like I was even more free and flexible than before to do whatever I wanted. So I just figured like, well, let's go have fun in Europe. And then when we get to Colorado, I'll, figure it out. And so I think I had always thought that I might want to do some teaching, which I still think sounds very enticing to me. Or do something better with my law degree that I was a better fit for me. So I was kind of figuring things out, looking at, different jobs in the area, trying to think what would be the best option for me. And, very early in our time here, we went to an HQ thing. I don't know if it was the one where we met you first, but, we met this guy, John, whose wife, Autumn, was not there at the time, because she was home taking care of their girls. But John and I really hit it off, and he said, well, my wife's a lawyer. And I think the conversation basically went that, like, I was a lawyer who hated Trump, and he was like, you should meet my wife, and you guys might hit it off. So Autumn and I went to lunch together probably less than a week later, and just got along like a house on fire. And I started working with her firm, and now we're law partners and everything is great. So yeah, it just kind of fell out of the sky, but it's been really, really fun.
Yeah, I think I might have been a little bit worried when we stepped away from everything that getting back into some sort of career or job would be a challenge. And it was easy. I did think that doing the adventures that we were doing, we could put on a resume or a cover letter that I, hiked 2,000 miles or whatever we did, and that'd be interesting and get you in the door to where the resume gap or anything like that wouldn't be a big detrimental thing. But with me going back to my old employer, that wasn't really a big deal. And with you, Carla, it just fell into things pretty naturally when you're just kind of open to whatever the world's going to offer you instead of being narrowly focused on what you're trying to do right now. It's surprising what will turn up.
I think there's a huge lesson in all this too. One thing I don't like about the FIRE term is the retire early part of it, because people use that to say, oh, I don't really want to do that. I love my job, so I want to stay there. And I don't like, I'm not sure what a better term would be. The financial independence part of it is what really counts, because that's what sets you free to do whatever you want. And if you make the decision, regardless of money, I've got all the money I need, but I like my job so much, I want to go back to work. Great, that's wonderful. You've found something incredible that very, very few people found, but you both have it, and you've both have found your niche, and that's absolutely wonderful. There are no rules, but the financial independence part is the part that allows you to make these decisions without money and give you the options and give you the word that's come up over and over again is the flexibility, which is the amazing part, because you could do whatever you want, and there's nothing wrong with going back to your work if that's what you really enjoy, and that gives you the meaning you want in your life.
Yeah, for us, it was about building the lifestyle that we wanted, right? It was getting away from the things that we didn't love about Dallas, getting somewhere where we felt like we could kind of tailor and package a life that was fulfilling for us. And we feel like we've done that for the moment, and I'm sure things will evolve and things will change. And we've got that ability to sort of continue to tailor and change it as things evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just been very freeing. So probably my favorite thing that I've done with the additional time that I've had is the piano. I took lessons from probably when I was like 4 all the way up through 18, and I totally loved it and got really good at it. But I just never even gave it a moment's consideration as doing it as a career. It probably would have been teaching. I don't think I was good enough to go be Lang Lang or anything, but like a famous concert pianist. But it just like, I don't know. I felt like I was on this had a very narrow mindset of, if you're, somebody who does well in school and you like academia, like you're one of the smart kids, this is what, not to say, you can be smart in other ways, but if you're someone who excels at school, you become a doctor or a lawyer. Like that was what I thought for the longest time. And I am so regretful of that. And obviously it's just stupidly narrow-minded. Like even engineering, I had like,
I was
it
going to
just
say, what
wasn't-
about engineers?
I know.
They're pretty good too.
I'm
Yeah.
a disappointment.
It's humiliating to admit this, but it was true. And I think there are probably other people out there who did feel that way or maybe still do. But yeah, it's just a insanely limiting view of life to grow up thinking that way. But yeah, I think I probably would have had more fun if I'd like studied music and become a piano teacher or something. Or I mean, who knows? I think there are probably a dozen different careers that might have been better fits for me. But I was just closed to that possibility because I felt like if you do well, like you should maximize your earning income, and these are the ways that you do that, period. Yeah, even things like investment banking, which, you know, people probably would have been making way more money than I was making. I just was closed to that. I had no idea. So I think as I've gotten older and looked around the world a little bit more, I've realized how silly that was. And one of the things that the additional time we have now has done for me is allow me to go back to that love of the piano and really dig into it and have a bunch of fun with that. And yeah, I'm hoping to give some lessons on the side, which I think will be fun. But yeah, I think having extra time to explore maybe a love that you've long since buried or find a new one that you didn't even know you had is pretty exciting.
Yeah, on that note, that was
Yeah, amazing.
yeah. What can we add, Doug?
Well, I was going to say for people that are maybe in the position, especially that you were in, Carla, I mean, I don't think anyone likes their job. The 8 people in the world that like their job. That's really odd and that's strange, but it's
so
cool
weird,
that you found it.
I feel very fortunate.
Yeah. For people that are in the position where they're thinking, hey, I dread my job, it's stressing me out. Do you have any tips for dealing with it? Maybe pulling together a strategy?
Don't do what I did. I don't think I handled it very well. I did the thing that everybody says you shouldn't do, which was just to focus on the future and yeah, like wish away my days, which is awful in hindsight. I wish that I hadn't done that. But yeah, I was like checking, we use Mint to like track our finances. I was checking Mint every day and just, you know, kind of obsessed with an end goal, which is not a healthy way to be. Yeah, and it's probably one of the reasons that I'm so happy now is that I got out of such a dark place of thinking, you know, just wishing time away, which is not a healthy mindset to have. So yeah, try to find the joy in the, you know, there's got to be something you love about what you do. And the sad thing is there was for me, like I had a lot of aspects to my job that I really did enjoy, but instead of kind of digging in and trying to find more joy in those, I just kind of focused on the negatives and was looking forward to putting a stop to those. So yeah, do what I say, not what I do.
Mm-hmm. And then, Robert, do you have any tips for dealing with someone that is going through such a thing?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any good advice. My answer every time Carla was just super stressed and really unhappy about work was find something else. There's all kinds of other things you can do. And then on the other side of that coin, she would come up with ideas for stuff to do and be like, come on, it'll get better. You just make your way through it. So I'm not sure I have the best advice, but really it's just to be supportive, right? It's to care about how people are doing. I mean, I still think about it. Would we have been better off if you had left jobs that weren't fulfilling for you to go do something that maybe would have brought in less money and been more fulfilling and been a better long-term fit? We wouldn't be here right now if you'd done that, right? Things would have been we'd have been on a different time scale. We would have chosen different things to do. We'd probably still be in Dallas, would be my guess. And I think that move has been phenomenal for us. So you kind of never really know what's going to be the best way through a challenging situation. I think the advice is to think critically about what you really want and try to understand the subtleties of why, right? What's unfulfilling about your current role if your life right now is unfulfilling, is it the job? Is it the location? Is it the people that you're surrounding yourself with? Like what's going on? And I think by having Carla in that position, we did a good job of sort of stepping back and figuring out what we really wanted in a way that most people just don't do, right? You have inertia and you're going where you're going. We stepped back and thought a lot about, well, what are we going to do? I remember, I think we took a walk around a lake in the Dallas area. Where are we going to be? Where are we going to move after we finish hiking? What's that going to be like? And we talked about traveling around and, spending a week in a bunch of different cities, sort of test driving different places that we thought might be interesting. And, the discussion about where we were going to live wasn't important, but the fact that we had both agreed that where we were living wasn't right for us was huge, right? It was really eye-opening. I think taking the time to really reflect on the subtle things or the small details about what you wish could be different in your life is a good way to make sure everything's going the right direction.
Awesome. Really well said.
I have nothing further to add.
All right. Well, any other questions or anything, Carl?
I just think, so we keep on coming back to the word flexibility, and Carla opened it up with the word fucking ability. I think, did I say that right, Carla?
You did. I feel like you should drop the G. I think it has a better ring to it without the G in the end.
Fuckability. That kind of sounds like something profane.
Yeah.
About strip clubs.
I was going to say, actually, I was going to wait for the outtake, so I'm going to interrupt because you derailed it, so it's your fault, man. I'm sorry. Why are the strip clubs so good in Dallas?
I don't know. I feel like I just heard people say that. Like, I mean, there's like a district in Dallas. It's like the strip club district, and like there's this one, it's Harry Hines, right? It's that's the name of a road, not a person. Well, probably was a person first, but anyway, that's a street in Dallas.
Like Harry, like Hairy.
Oh, that's good. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I just read it wrong for all those years. But yeah, it's I don't know why I said that. I don't know why. But it's like there's just not a lot going on in Dallas was my main point. And yeah.
But if you do drive up and down Interstate 35 in Dallas, billboards left and right.
It's true.
They're calling you.
Yeah. Robert and I are such like goody two-shoes people. Like neither of us have ever been in a strip club. But I don't know. It's just the thing about Dallas. It was supposed to be a joke about how awful the city is.
Good for conferences, probably.
Myself.
I mean, I think it's a sales point. But anyway, Carl was going to ask some intelligent question.
I'm not sure I had any intelligent question to ask, but I like the how we kept on going back to the flexibility and fuckability. I'm not going to get that right, but you should reserve that URL before this podcast comes out in case someone reserves it ahead of you and maybe turns it into something nefarious.
That's true.
Yeah, you could go to your URL and there will be stuff that you do not want to see. Trust me. So go out and get that URL and any variations of it, so you can have something positive instead of something similar to the Harry Hines district in Dallas.
Yeah. My hatred for that word has diminished over time. I just used to get so frustrated when I would be like in the throes of like I just want to do something different, and he was like, "Hang on, we'll have so much flexibility." If you don't, and then it led to me just like flex up fucking ability. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Like screw it. We'll have enough flexibility. But yeah, I hate to say it, but you were right. Like it all worked out and things are good. So yeah.
Very awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of you're able to design your life, and I think Robert, you said something kind of towards the beginning. You said when Carla came to you, you said you didn't know what your life was necessarily going to look like, and maybe that gave you a little bit of anxiety. And I think that's completely okay. Like we talked about, you don't have to leave your job, and the options and the flexibility, there's the F word again, of being able to do what you want has so much value and power to it. And it's not just the positive stuff. I mean, going to Alaska and the PCT and Europe are all great, but what happens if one of your parents gets sick or something like that? It's insurance against some negative occurrence in your life too. You can pick up, you don't have to answer to anyone. Hey, I got to take a sabbatical. I'll be back in 6 months. I'm going to go take care of my mother or father or whatever happens to come up in your life. So yeah, even if you don't know what you're going to do with it, it's still worthwhile to pursue financial independence.
Yeah, I have to agree. The options were what I really liked, right? You don't think about this sort of thing before financial independence comes into your focus, right? I think most people are just living their day to day. They've got some long-term goals that aren't that unusual. And you don't think like clean slate, what would I want to do? But you're right. Just having the ability to choose something, anything is a huge value. And I don't know, dreaming up what we might do with our time has been a lot of fun. And we're lucky we haven't had to take any time off to deal with anything unfortunate, like helping a sick family member through a tough time or anything like that. But yeah, for me, that was definitely a big draw. Was the ability to do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, whatever that might look like, and it didn't have to be well defined at the beginning of the path to get there.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be sexy either. There's a lot of value to being able to take your kid to tennis camp like I did this morning, or going to Home Depot like at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday versus going there. You ever go to Home Depot like on a Saturday morning in the summertime? There's like half of humanity is at the fucking Home Depot. So I avoid that like the plague. So it doesn't have to be the big epic things either. The little day-to-day things are probably more important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you could drive your lifestyle to where what everyone else does on the weekends, you do on the weekdays, man, like things can be so much better.
Huge difference. Yeah. Any other parting words or thoughts?
I don't think so. I just like I said, we're just so incredibly fortunate to have gotten to where we are, and we had a heck of a lot of help along the way, not just from parents, but mentors and people in our careers. And so yeah, we're just extremely grateful for where we are, and pretty darn excited about our flexible future. So
yeah,
life is good.
I'm glad we've chosen to embrace the flexibility and just give ourselves a chance to do whatever makes sense for us in the future, and just love the ability to go wherever the wind takes us.
Awesome. Well, you guys are off the grid, sort of. So is there anywhere people could follow you or anything like that? Or you're
Flexibility.com. Maybe soon to be. I don't know. I have thought about writing a personal finance blog for a long time. The main reason I didn't was just because I was always so afraid we would be found out and lose our jobs. But yeah, maybe forthcoming. So not yet, but maybe forthcoming.
If someone had a pressing question, I would say they could perhaps leave a comment on the YouTube video, and then we could ask and relay it back.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks a lot to you both.
Yeah, thank you so much. So inspiring. I'll close with one thing. You said the PCT, the most fun I ever had. And I know that's true. I've met like two of the people that you did the PCT with. So validation right there. It's awesome. I really want to eat the doubles too.
We'll do it.
I want to do the PCT just so I can do things like that. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. This was really fun.
Thanks for having us.